Michael Jordan would come around, shake our hands, and he would remember our names. And we were like this anomaly inside Nike, working with Bruce Lee's, one of his first students here in the States. I'm like, we just kept iterating. The color, the graphics, all those things. I've always been into surfing. And even when I was landlocked, it's freezing cold and awesome. And I fucking love it. It's called spelling. You're casting spells. Yeah, that was my name, Captain Lockup. Burton just was the pinnacle of graphic design. Where else would you go if you want to learn about brand? Conte, raise the vibration. Sweet.
So we're here on the podcast, the Co-Pro podcast, live at Nemo HQ with Jesse Conte. I've been so impressed that you've been able to wear so many hats over the years. Today we just started out with a fine art career, and that's where we're at today. But to get there, it's all the other experience of being, a graphic designer, running your own agency. You've steered creative for big brands like Quiksilver. You've been an entrepreneur, launching some products on your own, and now you've got this fine art on the wall. And so I think I'd be curious to learn more about the steps along the way to get to where we're at today. So where'd you grow up?
Upstate New York.
Upstate's a big place.
Upstate is a big place in the center of the Finger Lakes, this little tiny town called Bath, New York. And that's where we went to school. It's about 15 miles to school. You got to take a car, take a bus. It was uphill both ways to get there. Yep. And out in the middle of nowhere, out in the boonies.
Could be worse. I mean, it's a beautiful part of New York.
Totally.
If people haven't been, I think it's the prettiest part of New York is the Finger Lakes.
Yeah.
I mean, they talk about the Catskills and Adirondacks. It's more accessible to city people in Boston and New York, but Finger Lakes. And then the wine country, it really started there.
Yeah.
Western wine.
Widmer.
Is that the one?
Widmer, Taylor.
TaylorMade.
Yeah.
Taylor, yep.
Yeah.
We used to go camping with my family because I'm from Syracuse, so
Yep.
we got that.
Yep, we do.
And they'd always give you grape juice. Imagine that.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's like, here's some grape juice.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was just Welch's.
It's just Welch's, and here's your Concord grape pie. Yeah. And it was like they'd all come together at the in the fall in the festivals.
But it's funny to watch how, here in Oregon, they brought the vines over from France, and now we've got the Willamette Valley, and it's got a specialty tourism to cater to the wine audience.
Totally.
And it's doing an amazing job. But Finger Lakes had that way back in the day.
Way back.
Yeah, they invented it to my recollection.
Yeah.
But little upstate pride there. That's a good one.
Heck yeah.
All right, so we're coming off the high again. One of the fun things that we get to do here at the shop is like kind of introduce the idea of, let's say, a live event with the podcast. And so episode 15 we did one with Sean Tinney. He came in and had a book launching party here, and then now we've gotten to do this with, let's call it the fine art of Jesse Conte.
Yes.
And thank you for setting that up. I'm sure it wasn't, we should talk about some of the details, and I'm sure there was some trials and tribulations getting ready for that show, but holy cow, if you weren't here, you missed out. It was amazing.
Thank you. That's huge. And it was a life moment, and I like to look at, I'm pretty much planned out on how I do things in life.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In case you would have never known. I was just like, I look at things as the bucket list, and I have my bucket list of things that I would need to experience in this life. And this was one of them. Of always been creative in one form or another. It could be from, making mud pies as a kid and drawing, to building contraptions and figuring out how to build parts for my BMX bike and weld things, and it moved into one form or another. And I remember as like a kid, I'm like, I want these skis. I want a snowboard to work this way, and I'd be like cobbling it, changing things up. And we were, for lack of having good equipment, we were pressing our own snowboards in our shop and making our boards and like figuring out how to build bindings and cutting apart backpacks. And so I always had this thing of making something and finding a need for it. And and to take it further. And this one of them is like, then I got moved into art school, and you're just sitting there with my visions. I'm like, I'm gonna make snowboards. That was a thing. And I also wanted to be like, one point in life, I'm gonna have an art show. What does it take to go through that? And not knowing how it's all gonna come together, and to go through the different processes of feeling things out, work at it. And I got to this midlife. We're gonna like speed way ahead to this midlife point of like, oh, cool. I've always surrounded myself with the best people. When I say the best people, people I can learn from. And I've worked at companies and agencies with the best people around, and inspirers, people who took things, made things new, took it to the top level, to be able to learn from them. I've always been this like sponge of like, I want to just take everything in to go as far as I can. And I've got to this midlife point where I've had startup companies work from Nike, Adidas. I've kind of had my hands in so many different snow brands over my lifespan here, and surf companies. And I got to this point, I was like, I'm going to make my own stuff, make it really well. And then I got to this thing with perfectionism. I kept trying to make these companies so damn good, make the things for myself like so damn good. And I had the best people with me. And then we're like, can't get to the finish line. We just kept iterating. And sitting in my house, there was these beautiful brands in a box that I couldn't get out. And it was like, oh man, it was like this frustrating thing. And I had to like really sit there. I had like when COVID was like this really big timeout moment when that hit. And also I was coming to my midlife, getting closer to 50. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to do this all differently. I had some injuries that I was coming through, and I was like pretty slowed down. And I had to just go through I took stock of everything in my life. And I had really good teachers once again I used to train martial arts and yoga and meditation. I went through all these things just to get to the source of creativity. Mm-hmm. And for me, I wanted how far can I go? And I know if I just keep working at something, grinding it out, it's not it. There's other ways to go to it. So I got to this point, took stock of everything I was doing, and went back to my sketchbooks and just started writing everything out. And I keep my sketchbooks with me at all times, and it's in my backpack right behind me right now. And to be able to document, go through it, yep, and go in and find the tools, find other tools, other things, other ways and other methods to work through that burnout. And that was a big thing. I got to this burnout point, and I knew that, all right, there's all this artwork that I started wanting to do. I really wanted to get it out. And just remembering working out through martial arts training, through yoga, through all these other things, the rigor of working in some hardcore agencies and working with you guys. And it's you work it out. You work it out till you get it right and starts feeling something. And I started just one-line drawings. Started doing one-line drawings. And that's all I could. It's something my stepson and I, that's something we do. It's all right, what's the coolest drawing we could do with one line and connect it? And we were doing this over and over, this super playful thing. And I was doing that at Zoom meetings all day long, and having sketchbooks and little bright Post-it notes, and just filling everything, the back of bills. It's just one-line drawings, one thing. Right. And I did it for a year and a half. And it's that's pretty crazy. But with that practice of doing it over, I'm trying to feel it out. Where is this going to go? And it started this visual languages started coming out. These things I started finding this became looser and more playful. And I started working through other mediums. And I'm what does it feel like if I was going to do this watercolor pens? What if I started painting this? Go through it. I'm not it. Mm-hmm. And digging through my drawers of all these art supplies that I would hoard from college, or when I hit the burnout point from working at a brand, and go into brand, you build them all up, and then, okay, it's cool. You launch the baby, then it's time to go. Keep all your art supplies. And so I kept everything and just been putting to use. And I really missed the craft and design. Like design back before everything became, let's work on apps. Let's build apps. And I'm like, oh, okay, apps have a long way to go for user face, usability, this whole thing. We could talk about that on another point, but getting back to the craft and the feel of like, man, just a basic X-Acto knife, color, and just going real slow became this fun thing of seeing where it goes and how loose can I get? How tight can it be? And I started working through that perfectionism of like, I started getting one thing out and it became another and another. And I found I learned like a long time ago through martial arts of, when I say martial arts, we got into some like nutty things. I was doing Arnis and Kali, Eskrima, and these have like a big impact on my life because it really built me who I am today. And I was doing Jeet Kune Do, working with Bruce Lee's, one of his first students here in the States, in Seattle. So I was working on him, and we're doing all these things like, you're training, you're working on feeling everything out. It's like everything is about feel. You start to feel things out. You're working on it. Where does it go? It doesn't have to be, you don't have to come into the room with the answer. You don't have to. If you just come in there, be fully present, just feel like you listen. It's just like spend your time listening. You feel it out. Then you can arrive to something, and something can come out of that. And like bringing those practices back. And we used to go through and write down all our thoughts. Write down all your thoughts for like 2 weeks straight, to a month. And you go through and be like, oh shit. You can go back and read it. And it's like, that's what I'm actually thinking over and over. And you can change that. And this little thing with like Bruce Lee, it showed up. I was doing this when I was a kid of you write your intent. You write it down. You write it on paper. You write it and you feel the pen or the pencil. You're feeling it in that moment. You're writing it down. That's called spelling. You're casting spells. And I heard that as a kid. And that was something we were doing. You're writing your intent. You're manifesting this thing. And that's what being creative is all about, is like, that's something that's in all of us. You can cultivate it. And that's really been my path, is how to cultivate creativity. And I've gotten to this midlife state of, I've worked it, I felt it. Now I can talk about it and help inspire others with it, and do that within team settings. And those have been some of the most fun things. And you build up teams, you can share that out with other people, and they can help go do that. And that provides that energy.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Because I want to you've built the tension.
Yes.
And now we got to show the audience what you've come up with. Again, this is sort of where you're currently at. And again, the show is called Artifacts.
Artifacts.
And you've wrote a manifesto.
Yes.
And I brought it so you can read it for us.
Okay.
And then go onto YouTube. You're going to be able to visually see what we're talking about, because it's one thing to hear about it while you're driving, but the same token, if you go on YouTube, you can visually see what Jesse's talking about.
I appreciate that. Okay, so Artifacts. This exhibition is a culmination of artifacts, positive manifestations to bring us together to raise the vibration. In the physical process of working with earth, wood, and color, I reconnected with my playful heart of my youth and my purpose of why I came into this life. To honor the brightest light in the human spirit, dancing to the beat of the natural world we inhabit. For we are interconnected, feeling everything and capable of anything, and it only takes a smile to inspire quantum change. There was my signature, Conte, raise the vibration.
Thank you. I think that's well needed right now in this political climate and the state of the world. And I appreciate you just sharing that with us. And that kind of leads us up into, I think where we met was probably on the Burton days and board graphics.
It could be. It could be. It's, let me sit with it for a second. All right. So it'd be, I got to feel into this. All right. Time and place. I have this if I could see things, I could kind of put things in perspective. So you had a shop that was over on Belmont Street. There was a lot of plywood in there. When I say that, it was like MDF board. There was 3 of you. There was Holtz, Bartel, and yourself. And you're sitting up above. And it was near Clinton Street.
It was on Clinton in 20.
Okay, what year was that?
We got up there middle of 99, 2000.
Okay.
We were in there.
Yep. And you all were doing Morrow, and I'm trying to remember what else was going on.
K2, I think, started.
Oh, yeah.
For us at that time.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't, it's new manifesto. It was still K2. But
Yep.
yeah. It wasn't Elevate yet.
Yep. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I remember, I was like, all right, I knew what you guys are doing. And I remember having, you're a huge inspiration, and it helped me, and also Lumen too later on. It's a Lumen with Freestyling Magazine, and Lumen with Freestyling, and BMX Action, and you with all the snowboard work was happening. That was where the inspirations of like coming from a place that was relatively flat, and I've always, it's like, I'm going west. I'm going west. I'm going somewhere. And those were the seeds of inspiration of like, those things were calling to me. And working in, I worked in a BMX bike shop, a skate shop, and just to be able to take in culture and suck it all up. And it was like, the color, the graphics, all those things. And I loved it. And you're part of that inspiration. I remember coming out here, and it would have been it was probably at Adidas or something at that point, after working in Hooger and Scott from out in Sun Valley, Idaho.
No way. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you work with Noah?
Yeah. Yes. I had one of the best days of snowboarding with Noah. And
It's Noah Brandon, by the way. Yep.
yeah, I still remember that of his. He has such a keen insight of snowboarding, what to do, and the snowbird. Man, it was some of the. I still remember that day greatly. And
lucky
each
you.
snowflake on the mountain, it was so light and fluffy, and just eating snowflakes the whole time, was making turns. So I remember coming out and meeting with you guys and being really stoked, and from just the quality of work you're doing. And I've always been like, you go where the quality is to learn and push it. And so we had that relationship there, and I've been a migratory bird, so to speak, of going with that. Is I'll go in and fully immerse myself into a company, a brand, a culture, and just take everything in. And from there, I was I went to K2. I worked at K2 up in Vashon for a while.
All right.
And worked on their BMX program, and then came back down to Brand Jordan. And Brand Jordan was a super wild ride. And we were this little tiny team, and you come in these meetings and you just put an idea out there, and they're like, holy crap, okay, go do that. And be like, oh yeah, we could, I had this idea like early on of, for team sports, is showing up at events with all the apparel and everything there. You could have a tractor trailer that expands out, and you do having a full experience. You could do all these things and all these massive activations. Adidas couldn't do it. Brand Jordan was like, yep, cool. Let's go spend 3 months, go to Detroit. Here's this company. Let's go find it, go make it happen. And it was like everything like that. It was like blue sky ideas after blue sky idea done to perfection. And the most brilliant people around me that were just like super inspirational all the time. And it was just like, I was this young kid doing that. And being able to work with Tinker Hatfield in the kitchen and do all the graphics on, I believe it was the Jordan 20, and doing like everything was laser cut in. And I was just remember like, wow, this is so cool. And I could do this with I'm going to do this with a Sharpie, because I always was drawing logos as a kid, and I would just draw the logos. I thought that was something cool. You tune it, you do it, notebooks, everything. It was like logos to me is always the cleanest form of communication. It's symbolism, and you can load it with connotation, and it becomes something more. And I just love doing it. And it's also really tricky to do, because you have to reduce it. When I say reduce it, you have to strip away all the bullshit, just get to something that's clean and beautiful, and off you go. And Yeah, so I was doing that for a good chunk of time, 4 years in, and I just got to the point of like, okay, cool, another activation, another thing, and I was really into surfing. And when I say really, it's funny. I've always been into surfing, even when I was landlocked.
In Bath, New York.
In Bath, New York.
Ton of surfing in the Finger
And I would
Lakes.
just dream about it all the time of like, and be on the Finger Lakes and you see a boat wake, and this is before wake surfing or anything. I'm like, shit, maybe I could do that. Or finding like, taking when the streams are running high and you take a piece of plywood and you're like stream surfing and skimboarding. And I was like, it was everything. That's all I wanted to do. And dream about it. We go down we could be down in the Hatteras or up in Maine and just like, I don't have a wetsuit, but it's freezing cold and awesome. And so like one thing led to another. And I was out here in Oregon. That was one of the first things I did. I remember driving across country from New York to here, and a Toyota Hilux with the seat didn't recline. Drove all the way out here, bought a wetsuit and a surfboard, and the next morning went surfing. And it was like February, and I remember hands are locked, couldn't open up the doors and get in, and like had to break free and get the key and get the truck started and warm up. And so it went from that, and I was 4 years into Jordan and went down to Costa Rica, and I was like, oh shit, this just out in the middle of the jungle, warm water. It was like my second warm water trip versus the first one was the Big Island. So I ended up there, and that was a bucket list. The bucket list to be able to, I went just straight out of school all the way through. I knew what I was going to do from day one. At 16, I'm like, I'm going to make snowboard graphics. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Went through it, and just to have that time off to be able to surf and come back, played music and played in bands and did that. Then I got to that point of like, all right, I'm ready to come back in. And then I went to Jagger to Paulo Kemp, and Jagger, I always held them in such a high regard for what they did with Burton snowboards. And Burton just was the pinnacle of graphic design in my mind. And as much as like Jordan is incredible, Nike's incredible, they're just like this. And I needed to get that
right. So you're at Jordan, then you went to Burton?
Yeah, I went backwards.
Way.
I did everything backwards from the Vermont Oregon switcheroo.
Yeah.
I did everything backwards.
All right, we'll roll with that.
Yeah, I did everything backwards, and I really needed to do that a Burton board. It was just like, it was that dream, and to be able to do that, and that's the board I did a few boards, and one of them was the Feel Good, and I felt like,
no way.
Yeah, and Hannah Teeter won the Olympics on that one.
Okay.
And Torino, I believe that was somewhere around 2006. And so that's dating myself there. And it was super colorful, and it was just a playful experimentation of color. And there was little threads in that with little clues what was going to start coming into my switch to fine art. And there's a few pieces along the way of I moved on from there to Eastern Mountain Sports and rebranded them to help them become more like Burton. And when I say more like Burton, they wanted to reach a younger audience. Mm-hmm. And they were getting pretty gray-haired and lost their path, and went there to rebrand them. And they were really close to the ocean. That was, to me, it was like, I was just missing surfing so much. And I was like, all right, I'll go to near the Keene, New Hampshire area to go do that.
All right, not too far to the coast.
Yeah.
Well, let's back up a second.
Do it.
You got like, you're doing some graphic design, finding your passion for surfing, which will influence the fine art we're looking at today later, but we don't know that yet.
Yeah.
And then it also feels like there's a change from like, hey, I'm just doing graphic design, to now I really want to influence people's perceptions of value on, I'll call it the product or the brand itself. So you're starting to make this growth and this evolution in your professional and just sounds like your curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And so you did the Feel Good line.
Yep.
Check. We'll look for that graphic because that one's a cool one and a cool line. and it's still going today, actually.
Yeah.
And then now you got a chance to again. Was that one your first brand? Rebrand?
The first rebrand. The first rebrand would have been no. The first rebrand I did it by accident. The first rebrand I did was gotta remember here, Vasque.
I don't know what that is. Tell us.
So Vasque is okay. I gotta pull out my memory banks here. Okay, so Vasque started in this. I want to say '69, but I think it precedes that. So Vasque is a mountaineering boot. It was known for so that's sitting there in the '60s, and it was an all-leather mountaineering boot. And it was one of the first brands in the States, I believe, to be doing that. And I had this project of working with an agency called Parsley Browers.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was doing some POP pieces, and it would have been for a trade show coming up, and it was, I don't know, some like outdoor expo, something like that. Let's just say that for now. And I remember looking at the Vasque logo, and going to the sketchbooks, I kept drawing. I had this logo I was drawing over and over and over and over and over of this mountain shape. And we live in a place here we're surrounded by these large mountains, these powerful mountains that are so iconic. And so that was in my consciousness. I kept drawing this mountain shape with, it had a little bit of flow of things happening underneath it. And I was just looking at the Vasque logo, and it's like, oh my God, it needs to be updated. This really needs, where this brand wants to go into more of a technical space with, there was a lot of things going with this Vibram insole, this, that, and the other thing. Made this thing without a climbing rope. It was a really cool POP thing. It looked great, but the logo needed updated. So here's their new logo. I threw out in front of them. And they took it, and that's their logo to today. Cool. And it was one of those things of, it was like this learning lesson of, I was just happy to I just rebranded something in a way of, here's the color palette, and really cool of Joe and Guido to be like, yeah, go for it, kid. And literally, they were just like, go for it. And it was this thing I look back now of be careful. I'm a little more guarded of if I'm drawing something, if I'm going about it, if something is coming through, an idea, even down to that pocket tee over here was this little thing is something I'm drawn to. You got to work it through and just don't throw it out there so quick. And because I saw it for this, it was that logo and where I wanted that brand to go was much further out, and it was just further in the future, and which led to creating this brand Alpensea that was created out of this other need. But that was a really cool thing. So I started really getting into brand that way. And I learned so much in the brand space from Nike. It's where else would you go if you want to learn about brand? There was no better place. And also with at Jagger, it's everybody held brand at the highest regard. And brand was a word that wasn't used so much and before brand wasn't in everybody's consciousness. Brand was a very mystical word in a lot of ways, and it was before people said, I am a brand. I'd be like, yeah, everybody walks around, I am a self-brand. I'm like, ooh, that's cringy. It's really cringy. And Steve Jobs and his book in midway in that time period, he changed it. He opened the door for brand, and then everybody could go and sell it. But brand is something that, to me, when I say myself, I hold it in a very high regard. It is your principles of what you should be doing or not doing. And it's how you show up in the world, and it's the expectations that you set for it could be a customer, it could be how you're operating in the world and what you're putting out there, and it needs to deliver. And it's got to work on all those senses, and it's always I see it as this ever-changing, it's like the tides coming in, and it's those are always changing, and it's you want that perfect tide to ride that wave. And do you ever really get it fully? And it could change, and those brand perceptions, it could all wash away at one instant.
Right.
And we see it all the time. And we're all working in this space of, the worst thing you want is brand damage. And there's a lot of damaged brands out there that could be made amazing. And it takes having the right circumstances to all come together. And it's a lot like farming. You got to plant the seeds. It's not just planting the seeds. You got to make sure the soil is, you got to remove the rocks. You got to fertilize it, and you got to make sure there's water and sun and the right people there to know, like, oh, those tomatoes are just perfectly ripe. You pick them in that moment, and then you bring them to market. It takes a lot of coordination. And it takes really amazing teams to come together and the right people. And I've seen that happen in a few places. It happened in like the most pinnacle moments. Everything's right. And I've seen them like, yeah, it wasn't the best, but take your notes, write it down. How can you learn from that? And also be open for something new. Keep that spark of curiosity of where it can go. And I hopped around a lot to be like that curiosity, to be like, oh, you can really make a cool change. And it's like music and bands too, of what's that next album? How are they going to make it?
How hard is that, right?
It's super hard. I would Michael Jagger at JDK would say, make it new all the time. Just make it new. And I'm like, really, really make it new? And it would frustrate the hell out of me.
Right.
It was one of those things of make it new. And I'm like, how do you make it new? Like, just do it. You could grind. It's not just grinding it out. And it took me a long time. It's like, these little things that, like, they're always in my consciousness. It's in my mind. It's like probably living rent free in a lot of times, but I think those are really good questions to pose and to have, of like, how do you make it new? How do you switch it? How do you make the White Album? And it's what he's looking for is like the Clash's first album. It's like, it just totally there's something that comes into our being that just radically changes everything. And I fucking love it. And I'm dropping F-bombs because it's like, I love something that will come in, like a piece of music that will like just sweep and change everything. And I remember that's like, I want music to come in. I want art to come in. Mm-hmm. I want things to come in to be like, excite me so far that I'm like, I'm just going to listen to this album over and over. And it's going to be like, I'm driving down the street, I'm listening to it. I'm mowing the lawn, it's in my headphones. I'm surfing, I want it in my head. I want things like that. It's like, everything is, that's something I want it. I want to, like, if I can help steer that, make something radically new.
Right.
And have, and hopefully it's a joyful experience along with it.
Well, again, it sounds like, you got I'll call it a mentor with Michael Jagger. You've learned graphic design. You've got to do a board graphic. Check.
Yep.
Graphic designer 101. Get the board graphic in your quiver of tricks.
Yep.
Check. Got that figured out. And now there's starting to collaborate with brand. And it seems like from over here, it's like, oh, you got a freebie with Vasque brand. Like the founder's like, cool, check. There wasn't a lot of friction. So
yeah,
you didn't get some of the hard lessons that you might have gotten at bigger brands where you have more moving parts. Like at Jordan, I imagine there's 20 gatekeepers, and then curious.
No, actually, Jordan was no gatekeepers. It was everybody knew what the North Star was at that point in time, and we were a small knit crew that was the biggest changes all the way up to Larry and Howard White. You walk in there, what do? Give you a hug. It was like, literally, we would hug it out all the time. We were just like, literally, it was the most different place, and we were like this anomaly inside Nike. And at that point in time, before we hit $1 billion, or they hit $1 billion, it was very tight community that communicated. We talked, we worked things out. And it was just like, it was very organic. It was something that was almost never said. And that was like the coolest thing of it, hindsight. That was something I appreciate it to this day. And it's something I didn't know until later on. And it wasn't like everybody was trying to make a name for themselves. Everybody was trying to be like, do what's right because of the respect of what we were, where we were, who we were working with, who we were working for. And
That's big.
Michael Jordan would come around, shake our hands, and he would remember our names. And so those were just like, it was respect. And that was, I feel like everybody needs to just look for that place of have that respect and know how to be able to share that. It's I think that really is a profound experience in life.
Well, I'm
right
super
there.
jealous because you've had some great experiences, and then collaboration, co-pro, obviously is one of
Yes.
the big things that we talk about here. And it is a art, a craft, trying to learn how to communicate with other people. And again, you hit on something. It's like, I want it to be right. I don't want that I'm right. So this sounds like the crew is like, we know what the North Star is. It's like, let's work together to get there. My ego is to the side. What's your idea today? And let's map it out. Let's see if that's going to actually work. And so, again, congratulations to those leaders. You were so lucky to have been able to work and mentor underneath them. But I have to ask the other question, right? Conflict always keeps.
Oh, totally.
It's like, I'm sure you've had a shitty situation too, and where it didn't work. Can you go through that experience?
Oh, absolutely.
It sounds like there's like, yeah, I got a few.
Oh, yeah. It's like there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, and I could like name them off in lots of different ways. But the overlying thing why they weren't successful, or wasn't there for the long haul, or it's the conditions. It's the conditions of Quiksilver was like, to me, one of the most incredible, powerful brands with art and soul, surf, skate, music, and one of my biggest heroes is Natas.
No, you got to work with Natas.
Natas is one of my biggest heroes ever, and in ways of little things like he defied gravity. And when I say defied gravity, he was doing wall rides. And it was like, at that point in time, it was like a wall ride was like, what the fuck is that? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And it sounds so funny now of, let's look at our screen and be like, yeah, somebody just did like a 12 million. But before there was a 12 million, somebody had to go do an ollie. Somebody had to do a wall ride. And that just broke the door open for me, And being landlocked dirt road, I had a BMX bike. I couldn't do it on a skateboard. And so I was like throwing myself on a BMX bike at walls. And Natas' beautiful script work, color work,
Right.
and design work, what he did with the Quickie logo. And I always held Natas at the highest regard. And he's a beautiful human, human. And
It's great to hear.
And I got a phone call one day it was like, hi, this is Natas on the phone. I was like, I'm getting pranked. And I hung up. I hung up on him. And then I got another call and was like, hi, this is Natas. Is this Jesse? I'm like, okay, just like somebody fucking with me. I just hung up again. And the next day later, I got a call from Quiksilver's hiring department. It was like, hey, we saw your portfolio. We would like you to come out and like talk to us. I'm like, we have a CD position open. I'm like, oh my God, like it's just a dream came true of anything you're putting out there. And also like right before that, it was going down to California for a wedding, and just like I forget where we were, Hermosa Beach or Malibu, and people are just like cruiser bike, wetsuit, half on, holding a surfboard, and it's like November and it's water's still warm. I'm like, well, this is sounding pretty good, and then the phone call happens, and while I was at Quick, and Natas was there, it was just like a dream. It was just like, oh, it's just like I just got let into the club in a lot of ways. I somehow got into the club, and while I was there, Natas ended up moving on, and it was pretty heartbreaking. It was one of those things that was just like, oh my God.
Right.
And he was there for a good long time, and he was moving on, and I really miss the short time we had together, and I would love to have more of that and like to open that back up again. But at the same time, there is a lot of change at Quick. Quick was a incredible agencies, incredible people internally, and got to work with Simon Buttonshaw. And Simon was the original creative director of Quiksilver, and Quick started in his mother's kitchen in 1969 in Torquay, Australia. And you look at things like checkers, polka dots, harlequins, and all these things that came into the 80s of what we think of like 80s graphic design. And I came in with Simon, and because they were looking, Peter Green was looking at horse racing, and it was like, it's loud, it stands out. And that whole, and just like noting where all this design came from, and I was like, holy shit, here's the history of actually finding out what that history is. And Simon was and is an incredible artist, and a presence, a serious presence when he walks into the room. And the CEO at the time, when they would walk in the room, you'd be like, I know what these folks are about. And it's from yoga, martial arts. I know the presence. You feel the presence, and you come correctly. You come correctly with respect, and what they have. I revered them on the highest regard of everything that was put forth, and the structure of Quiksilver was it was a lot to do, and I'm so grateful for the opportunities to be able to go around the world, and go from upstate New York to Torquay to Hawaii, to show up in Biarritz and be like stamping the passport and working with incredible people. That was globally. And that was something too of learning really early on at Scott we had Reto was in Switzerland. That the other half that companies, and majority of the companies in Switzerland, and there's differences in culture between us. They see things a certain way. It's even down to a color. We don't like that color, or we love this color. And be like, you get into it, you listen to them, and you take the time and listen and sit there. You take it in, and then you find the common ground. And you're able to celebrate all the differences around the globe. And that was my thing. I learned really early on to like, they're not wrong. They have needs. And we take our pride, our national pride and ego, you separate that and be like, hey, they're onto something that's so cool. Maybe I don't know that yet. And like, let's bring it in. And that was my big thing. I learned from that, and to bring that into Quick, it was so global, and that was my favorite part. I have friends around the world to this day that are the big, huge part of this artwork. That's in the incubation of it, and we talk about it. We talk about like, hey, what are you doing? What are you working on? How's that going? I really love this piece, and I'm so thankful that, hey, I would love that. And I'm like, here, I'm going to take that energy, give it to you, and that's hanging in their house, and they get some feedback, and that feels good. And so that with Quick, incredible teams and incredible people, but the infrastructures just weren't ready, and the time people moving on from their positions and or from the company that they created, and retiring, and the changes and changes in Wall Street and internal politics, they start to erode away, and it's not to the same vision. And little things of I learned just being super observant. And look, I remember being somewhere in Paris, and might be on the Champs, and seeing all these stores. I remember like all these fashion shops, and like there's a Quiksilver near like Gucci, and I'm walking in, I'm like, holy shit! There's 18 different versions of the Quiksilver logo in one store, and it was just like all over the place, and like, oh my God, we got our work cut out for us, and you have to bring everybody together. And I learned to, that's where actually working here with Hoskins, and that's where I became Captain Process, and working with Nike. And I had that Nike experience and the Jagger experience of putting together really solid brand foundation decks. And from that, it was bringing that process to organize everybody to a central vision. And with Quiksilver, I learned since we're global and English is not our first language, is make it simple. It's simplify everything down. Take the big words out of it. I learned that from Craig Stevenson, the CEO of it. It was like, hey, we're global, bud. It's like, you just got to make it easy for folks. Like you're making these massive decks, and you're going around talking to everybody. You got to make it simple. And that was, by taking that to heart, the more I could bring people together and share that and help them with the tools and to use the tools, we started getting to, my goal was to get to over a couple of years time span is to get to 80% perfection. If we can clear up all the logos, get our story straight, if we can get to 80%, then it's fine. And because that perfection thing is so hard to hit. It's just like, and it would get kind of stale, and like leave room for new things to come in. And working that through that was my name, Captain Lockup. I was helping locking everything up with
Captain Lockup,
and bringing all that tight, and bringing all the stories, and getting everything in unison, and scaling down of being able to work with the athletes in ways that really suited them. And I was just like, oh my God, we're spending so much money on these massive photo shoots, and it's like herding cats, and very few cats want to be like snugged up with each other, and they're all you're taking all these alphas, and they're highly competitive. And it was like, all right, let's get incredible people that can swim, photographers that can swim, and get them with the athlete that they work, and they're going to work awesome together.
Yep. And
just send the Zodiacs out. And that was like a big change. Change. And then we started bringing in content. We had so much content, we didn't know what to do with it. And it was all of, one of my favorite things would be a lot of late nights. It'd be like a drive shows up, and just going through, and I'm like looking at all the footage of like Dane Reynolds and Kelly, and just like going through all of it and the technique, and just like, whew, it was just like going through. You get to go through, and like, wow, it's just like take it all in, and just like study the shit out of it. And it was beautiful, a beautiful thing. Right. And I miss that. And also part of me doesn't, because it's so time consuming. There's so much photos, and can watch a video at this part of time, but it's a little glimpse. You get to see things that the world hasn't seen, and not to be a gatekeeper of it. Is like, but the athletes get to choose. They got to go. They went through it. Everything that showed up in the campaign, we presented back to them, and be like, "Does this feel right?" And seeing everybody's insight of, like Kelly's perception or perspective of how these, like, there was like a lot of watercolor art and going on. When I say watercolor, it was a lot of swirl patterns and marbling, and his insight of how what he sees, how he looks at it. and just like take those notes. And it's like, oh, cool. He got to share something with me or with all of us that we've never got to see before.
So cool.
And that insight, I think, it's special. And I cherish those moments.
So now it looks like you've gone, you've got all these great mentors. You've kind of come to this place we'll call it Quiksilver for now, but there's two things that make me super curious. It's like, how were you able to manage, let's call it, junior designers or junior brand people coming up the ranks, and at the same time, I'm sure you're having to present to, we'll call it the bosses.
Yep.
And so you're kind of in between both worlds. And so what was your secret formula for trying to, give inspiration for the young folks coming up the ranks and at the same time be accountable for the bean counters?
Okay. Well, the earlier days I was terrible at it and atrocious. And I say that as you worked in these places that were very alpha. When I say alpha, it's you just don't go through art school and show up at all these places without having a hardcore self-driven work ethic. And delegation I was terrible at it. And I'm being really self-critical on this.
Please.
And it's something it took time to build. And I had these incredible mentors, and these are my guiding lights. And then the deadline and the expectations of the company,
right,
of where we're going to go. And so it meant a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, and a lot of heart, drive, and passion. And that also leads to burnout. And there's also, it's like everybody wants to throw resources on things. I was like, all right, if I had 10 more people or 2 more people,
right,
you can make it so much better. And this is a thing I've learned later on. And it's like everybody they want to come into a place, they want to feel inspired, and they want to be enriched. People don't go to a company to be like, I just want to like stamp this and put it out. No, they want to come out better. It's not just doing the design project. They're the internal project. You want to go in these places. You want to change. You want to come up and to be able to I personally treated every place like college. It was another level. It was another level of college to get my master's. I got my master's in marketing from Brand Jordan. I did. And I was able to take that to apply it to the next. At Quiksilver, I was fortunate to be able to see, and it was receptive to be able to see all the aspects of the business. And Craig Stevenson said to me, it was like, hey, mate, stop asking for money until you learn like what's going on over here. This is what our supply chain's doing.
Yeah.
You got to think about everything that's happening. It was like, okay, thank you very much. It was just like, those are these learning lessons that I could go further with. So, and I saw with folks with my team at Quick, they were like freaking amazing. And there was never enough time in the day. And I feel like in hindsight, I feel pretty bad about that. And I didn't have the tools to be able to help. It's like to be able to pull everybody in. I would do it individually and enough, but everybody needed much more. It was just the time constraints in the culture. And now sitting back, I went through, there was a good chunk of time from there. And I knew that was something I really needed to work on. And I made it my mission I took in every single podcast possible. I've read every single book, and not every single book. That's a big stretch. I've read a lot of books. I've taken in every single podcast I can.
Just 3 titles that somebody should read.
Oh man, Multipliers. That's a huge one. Mind Hacking Happiness. Any of Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO.
Yep.
And I also brought in a coach to be able to help us with emotional intelligence. I've just noticed, like, all right, this is the way businesses are going to be. It's like the resources are not going to be there. And this day and age, if we're in a time of constriction in a lot of ways. So how do you make bring up everybody's happiness along with helping people find, like, everybody wants to do a good job, and how do you help them be their best? I delved into that, and I had to do it through myself. I spent tons of time and effort on a meditation coach, going through and breaking down all these things within myself to learn from that and taking in everywhere else, pulling it all in, and to help build teams up, to build people up. It was like, I just saw so much, especially during COVID, of holy shit, we're all isolated. Holy shit, the job never changed. The job got harder. Everything goes, like, over time, everything gets a little harder. And it's like, let's hope we're making diamonds on all of this pressure. And I saw, like, holy crap, if I'm going to lose, I can't lose people because I won't be able to rehire them. And these are really good people because I found them in the first place, and they're welcomed, and they came in to join this vision. And so I needed to change what I'm doing to help the whole, the greater good.
Sounds like that analogy on the airplane. You got to wear the mask before you give your kid a mask.
Yes. Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. And but also I have to feel it. I'm a person that has to go through it. I have to experience it, go through it to be like, oh yeah, there's some pitfalls on this trail, and to be able to take it and to be able to talk about it with heart. It all comes down to heart. If it's not, the heart's not there, it's pretty boring. It's soft. And to be able to go through it, and it felt like for a while, like, folks were just like, what the hell are we doing? And then it became like, over time of the emotional intelligence work was like, oh, this is something else, and I want to join that team. And it was a pretty radical thing. And the work that was coming out with it was people are having joy working with each other. People are having joy. Things that were very laborious, tedious, or communications weren't there. They had tools. It became fun using the tools to be able to communicate better, to get to a better outcome. And I was like, since moving on from that last round into something else, I'm planting, I see it as the farmers, the Johnny Appleseed is spreading these tools out there for folks to be able to take it and use it. And everybody's using it in their personal lives. And they're like, I've been doing this with my kids. I've been doing this with my partner. And I'm seeing this life change, and we're just generally happier. And I never thought that's been my greatest accomplishment out of brand. That's my greatest accomplishment out of any other. I have some really cool projects that I'm proud of. And there's some cool logos and experiences. But this one was like, yeah, I made it new. That was my moment to, like, be a comedian and wrap it all up. That was my made it new. And it's something that you're not going to see it on a billboard in a way. You're going to see it could show up. Maybe there's an app out there that got a little bit better, and it came through that. Maybe that collaboration got a little bit better. And this is something that it has to be worked on, and it's something you got to practice it and just keep it going. And I feel like that's the old adage of we'd always hear this in martial arts and yoga and whatnot of like, if you when you reach enlightenment, you gotta chop wood and carry water. When you reach enlightenment, you're still chopping wood and carrying water. You gotta keep at it. And I think that's a real beautiful thing.
What's one thing that leaders get wrong about brand that you'd really like to educate them about?
I've seen some rare cases of why does brand even matter?
Keep going.
Why does brand matter? And I came into this company rebrand and was brought into, I thought this company was super incredible. And what they do is really super interesting and super abstract at the same time. Okay, this company owns a space, like literally dominates the space, like so massive. And their profit margins you'd be like, oh, wow. It's incredible. Profit margins are insane. So why would we even need brand? Brand doesn't matter. Why would we even need it? And you think about what happens in today's space, especially on the tech side of, like, anything could happen at any moment. And even if you're making all this money, brand matters. Brand really matters of how you show up every day. What happens when there's an outage of your product? What happens when you get hacked? And this is something that's like cybersecurity is an incredibly important thing. Brand matters, and of how you show up and respond in those moments, of how you take care of your customers. I'm just like, if you don't take care of your customers, there's a disruptor showing up at any moment right now that is going to come there and drink your milkshake. And so what you're trying to do is protect that. And it's like brands that care at that point. So it's a really interesting set of circumstances. You look at that overall of, if it doesn't matter, what else doesn't matter? And so maybe what you're building has been compromised somewhere else. I think I look at those things of like the whole, as I like to look at everything as the whole, and you start to pull strings. So I believe brand matters. I personally believe brand matters. And I've seen when you put when everybody has something to be able to rally around, a proper brand foundation, a set of principles, North Stars, guiding lights, and when they're strong, you're really uniting people. And I think that's a beautiful thing. It's like you're bringing people together. Like right now, I feel like the United States needs a brand. It needs to be rebranded. It needs a brand overhaul as far as like, or a refresh of remembering what our core tenets are all about, of what we're all, and that you got to bring people together.
You could argue the United States did get rebranded. You just don't like it.
Well, it's like the wheel, the brand wheel it's like it's rising, it's becoming great, and then it falls off, and it's leadership. It's leadership.
It's like get the leaders that are entrepreneurial and marketing minded, and then it grows, and then the bean counter operation people get in and want to make some efficiencies, and it fails.
Yeah.
But to go back,
this is the Thanksgiving conversation
point.
We got to divert here.
Does brand matter? And again, there's a spark there, and what it brought up for me immediately was, again, it's like you look at some, we'll call them ingredient brands like Intel and Gore-Tex, where it's like, do you really care what the liner is inside your jacket or the little chip inside your computer? But it matters, and it does bring value at the end of the day. And the other is, brand is like an insurance policy, and we've seen it with Nike, and we got the dog fighter, we've got Tiger doing some indiscrepant things, and then even with Kaepernick, and the brand keeps going. It doesn't fail when there's something that's compromised in the public's mind, and yet the brand keeps going, and if it's done correctly.
And we're also like, our examples are, they're massive. Like literally, like if we're using Nike as an example, and like, my God, it's like the population of Nike is probably bigger than Rhode Island. And it's like,
easy.
These are so big. And they're institutions in themselves. And I'm really interested in is the little ones. Is the little ones of where I feel like the little ones are going to come up with something. There's something new every day. And I find like, that's where the surprises are. it's like that's the new music coming up of, hopefully there's the new music coming up that it's created with soul and humanity. It's those things that I don't want everything to look, I feel like we're looking the same and feeling the same. Or like all of us, we could go downtown Portland, we could go to Paris, and you're still seeing these glass buildings and a Starbucks and these same stores and places, and like, I want to see the new. I want to see something like the culture of something radically interesting, and maybe that is just part of we're so plugged into each other, and everything's so like, let's take the same thing that worked here and stick it there, and like, I want something organic, new to spring up, to be like blown away with, and I feel like that's happening.
Let's go a little deeper with
do
that
it.
thought. Again, it's like, what brand is you're super irrationally excited about for no apparent reason?
As a user, as a customer, there's a few things of I have affinity for certain tools, and I'm going to say like Gibson guitars. I have an affinity for them, and I see them doing like really cool things and working with new artists in amazing ways, and their product standards have come up so high, and I have a Memento Les Paul that I feel like it was a benchmark I've earned of playing for so long, and then to get it and shows up and it's like exceeds expectations. Ooh. And it's exceeded those expectations, and it like radically, the way that thing sounds, the structure of it, it changed my guitar style. And I was right for the, I was as a vessel for that. I was right in that moment for that instrument to show up and to be able, and it was also a really strong piece of this, a strong tool in the artwork I've been making,
right?
Which is, it's a cool thing. So I feel like they showed up correctly. And that's one, like, once again, that is, I look at them, there's other things in there, and I feel like they're doing the 80%. They're 80% perfection of getting to that state. And so I have to, as someone who works in brand, who I see the patterns, and I have like a trained eye, and I'm really like, I'm hyper critical in those senses, and I have to give forgiveness and to be like, yeah, they're doing it pretty damn good. The overall, there's some things in there I'm like, yeah, maybe not so much, but hey, cool, I have a few things that work really well. And so I have to give grace.
Well, you're going to have to play for me.
Okay.
And then I got a couple other, like, before we play, we'll kind of cut it, we'll edit it a certain way here. But again, we'll get you into playing it. But the other one is like, if Natas Coppice wants to find you today, how's he going to find you?
My phone number hasn't changed since my first phone.
We don't want to hand that one out. So if people want to see the art show, again, like, where can they come and see you? Okay.
It's like real easy right now is Conte.humanoriginals. And Instagram, I'm back on the Instagram at the moment after taking a good chunk of time off of it.
Yep.
And I'd like to strip things away and come back at it, and to be deeply in a space to cultivate my artwork. And I started showing it earlier on Insta, and I pulled it off because I was like, oh, this is so much fun, and things are coming in through so fast, and I'm like, I'm evolving, and I'm like, I just felt like I didn't want to be stuck to a moment. And Instagram is always good, and Jesse at jesseconte.com is my email, and it's always there.
I know what's up with that one.
It's always there.
All right, give me some licks.